Hi, it's Emma from SUP Inflatables, and today we'll talk about what to wear paddleboarding with special thought into what to wear paddleboarding when it gets colder. Paddleboard clothing has to cover a few eventualities, right from the start of summer when it's really nice and warm. You need to protect your skin from the UV rays and from burning, right through to spring, August and winter. The clothing then has to start getting a little bit more technical. Paddleboard clothing has to be easy to wear, comfortable, and it also has to protect you from the cold of the water if you unfortunately fall in. Paddleboard clothing manufacturers have actually taken a while to meet the demands of paddleboarders, but now gone are the days of tight rash vests and tight neoprene wetsuits, and we're actually starting to gain things that are absolutely correct for our needs of standing on top of the water and really most of us not actually falling in that much. So in summer we're looking at UV protected t-shirts. We're going right through the seasons. We can then start looking at 1 and 2 mil neoprene, which is made out of limestone, that's super stretchy, so it has breathability. When it starts needed, there's a thermal lining that those neoprene leggings now have. And then right through to the winter, we're starting to have access to two-piece dry suits, which are starting to become more affordable for us as well. Those two-piece dry suits are actually starting to become much more accessible and much more to a specific need of a paddleboarder. The reason for that is the cuffs on the wrists and the ankles are designed for us rather than kayakers, and the manufacturers are starting to see sales so they can start to design, whether it be the UV protection or the neoprene or the dry suits, they can start designing it specifically to our needs because we're starting to buy it. Paddleboarding clothing has taken a while to be a bit more inclusive, and to be honest, it's still got a way to go, but now kayaking brands have taken on the solution for us of what to wear paddleboarding. This inclusion is getting a little bit better. For example, we have a neoprene brand that does some really great tops and leggings, and they've designed those tops and leggings to be able to be cut so shorter riders can wear them. We've noticed this is especially important when riders are a bit more curvy and they're going into larger kit but still on the shorter side, so they just don't want lots of fabric hanging around their ankle, so that's really, really great. We've also got another kayaking brand that's designed clothing for women. Actually, they probably need to be a little bit more gender neutral on this, because when I've really looked at the kit, it's not women, it's just shorter in the body, which is fantastic because it means that whether you're male or female, you now have a kit that fits that shorter body if it's needed. And we've also noticed that because most of the kit is unisex with a few drop-ins of ladies, that the larger riders also have kit that they can wear too. I think it's really going up to a top end of size 20, so as I said, there is a little bit of work that needs to be done here, but at least it's starting to get there where anybody who wants to paddleboard has kit available to them. What to wear in the summer months and when it's warmer, to be honest, it's really easy for most of us. If you want to go out and buy some specific paddleboard wear, you certainly can, but look in your wardrobe and see what you've got, and really what you'll be looking for is UV protective tops. I think that's a big must really with paddleboarding. Maybe some UV protective leggings if you're going out for a longer day, a quick dry hat, some comfy trainers or some water shoes if you think you can be getting on and off your board, and maybe a dry bag to put your water in and have some snacks. But summer paddleboarding, it's great fun and less thought is needed. When it starts to get chilly, this is where paddleboarding wear needs to be a bit more carefully considered. I suppose, like going on a hike or mountain biking or doing any other sport that you love. When it's nice and warm, you can just get on and do it without too much thought, and as soon as it starts to get colder, you need to start planning for those what if and maybes. How we do this with paddleboarding is really nice stretchy neoprene leggings, tops, jacket, and maybe a waterproof jacket. This doesn't actually need to be paddleboard specific, it can come from hiking or mountain biking ranges, anything really that's longer in the back and longer in the arms. And this is because obviously when you're paddleboarding you've got a nice stretch, so as you're stretching it's lifting the arm material and it's lifting the waist, so suddenly all the material around your waist needs to be longer to allow your back and your midriff not to get cold. So when we're looking at specific paddleboarding wear as it's starting to get colder, and we're looking at a limestone neoprene, 1 to 2 mils, it's nice and stretchy. You might be looking for a neoprene that's got a nice thermal lining in it, and really what we're looking for is kit that allows you to be nice and comfortable on top of your paddleboard, especially if you're those people, which seems to be most of us are, that we're not really falling off, we're on top of the paddleboard or walking on water in essence, but you don't want to be over hot whilst you're paddleboarding, but when you fall in you start needing to have that extra protection as it's getting colder. The other thing that you can do is if you're trying to paddleboard on a budget, make sure you have a flask in your dry bag that's got some tea in it, extra pair of clothes, and if you do fall in, quickly change into some warm clothes, sit on the side, have a nice cup of tea, and then go off paddleboarding again. What kind of neoprene is right for paddleboarding? Neoprene is a fantastic product and it works brilliantly for paddleboarders or surfers or windsurfers that are falling into the water. And the way neoprene works is the neoprene is tight to your skin, and when you fall in there's water that gets stuck between your neoprene layer and your skin, and that water heats up to keep you warm. With the onset of paddleboarding, bodyboarding and just general water sports becoming much more popular, the problem with that is cheaper manufacturers has come in and started making very cheap neoprene, and it just doesn't work as well. How you can tell that from a consumer is, to be fair, the first one it'll be very, very cheap to buy. If when you get it, or if you're in the shop and you're having a good look at it, when you pull it, if there's no stretch in it, it means it's a cheap neoprene, and when you get it on, if it just feels very cardboardy and itchy and you've got big baggy bits around the back, you know, where your bum meets your spine, and if it's just really uncomfortable, that means that neoprene is cheaper, and if you do fall in, it just won't work. So when you're looking for a neoprene, especially with paddleboarding, you're looking for a very thin, stretchy neoprene. That neoprene will be 1 or 2 millimeters thick, and when you're looking at the manufacturing information on it, have a look for neoprene that's called limestone. It's just a really premium, easy to wear neoprene that has a cotton-like feel to it as well, so you're going to be feeling really, really comfortable in it. And when those brands start making this kind of neoprene, there's a lot of manufacturing effort going into it to make it wicking, and so you're going to feel less sweaty whilst you're paddling on the top of the water. But if you do fall in, that's when it kicks in and it will do everything it's supposed to, and that water will get trapped between your body and the neoprene and it will keep you warm. What to wear when it gets colder? When the weather conditions are starting to get very cold and the water is starting to become freezing, and if you fell in it'd be quite uncomfortable, we are starting to suggest two-piece dry suit. A two-piece dry suit, thanks to kayaking brands really taking this baton on for, is becoming more reasonably priced, and really they're the same price as a premium full winter wetsuit. So budgetary wise, they're becoming much more accessible to people. They're really, really comfortable to wear. The neck design means that they're not constricting. It just allows them to get on and off really easily. And if you fall in, you are physically dry, so you can get back on your board and carry on with your paddle. We've been asked a couple of times what people wear underneath their dry suit. It's dry, so what you wear can be quite flexible. And when it's a lovely, warm winter's day, but again, you know, the water's cold, you can wear something simple, t-shirt and leggings underneath, going right up to when it starts to become quite cold, you can start layering up merino wool thermals. This can come from mountain biking ranges, skiing ranges are of course paddleboarding ranges, but we have noticed that most people have this stuff in their wardrobe already, so you can again spend that money on a really great dry suit and then start pulling things out of your wardrobe for those things to go in underneath it. When you're going out in the real cold and you have maybe a higher chance of falling in, the neoprene that we were talking about earlier that you've probably bought for spring, that 1 and 2 mil limestone neoprene, that can go underneath your two-piece dry suit, and that will just give you that little added layer of protection. There's quite a few different two-piece dry suits on the market, which again makes it a bit confusing to people who are buying a dry suit for paddleboarding, because the marketing will maybe suggest that they all are right for that. There's a few details that make a two-piece dry suit perfect for paddleboarders, so we'll go through that step by step. The dry suit neck design. When you're looking online, there is a lot of different dry suit options, and we've noticed that whether they are perfect for paddleboarding or not, maybe they will insinuate that. Really, when you're looking for a full dry suit or a two-piece dry suit and you're looking at the different neck options, you'll be offered a neoprene neck, a latex neck, or a very comfy open neck. It'll have a bit of Velcro, there'll be a tab on it, I'll call it an open neck in the description. And really we're pointing paddleboarders towards that third, that open neck. The reason for that is most paddleboarders, when they're paddleboarding, especially in the colder weather, they're not going to be expecting to fall in. All this kit is designed for that just in case. So if you fall in, the comfort neck is tight enough to stop the water getting in a falling situation. It's not designed for people who are going to be swimming around, for instance. So if you do think you're going to be submerged in the water for long periods of time, you know you're going to get off your paddleboard, you're going to have a swim around and get back on, then that is probably where you're going to be looking at a full dry suit with latex or neoprene neck. But for most of us, that open neck is a fantastic option. The dry suit leg and the foot design, this is another key area to look at when you're looking for especially a two-piece dry suit. Because these trousers have come from a kayaking background, quite a few of them can have a big foot integrated into the bottom. It does mean that the trouser then is totally watertight, but on the slight negative, it does mean that they're a little bit less comfortable to wear. And the reason for this is it is suggested that you put a sock underneath for warmth, then you put the trouser on with the integrated boot, and then because the integrated boot is kind of big and it's not got a sole on it, you need to then put a boot or a trainer on top. So once you've got all that layers and then you're standing on the paddleboard, it's not the most comfortable thing in the world really. So how we've got around that is there is brands that have given us trousers with a neoprene or latex ankle seal. And what we do is we put a waterproof sock underneath. So you put the waterproof sock on first, then you put the trouser on, and the neoprene and latex seal hold round the ankle to such a high degree that it's still comfortable, but it holds round and it stops water getting in. So if you fall off, your foot is still dry, but when you're paddleboarding, and most of us are paddleboarding without falling off at all, your foot is comfy for those long hours, or hopefully half day on the paddleboard. The dry suit wrist design. On most dry suits, be it one or two piece, you have the choice of a neoprene cuff or a latex cuff. They're super comfortable on either way. I think the main possible decision choice for some people will be whether they're allergic to latex, but either one other than that is going to suffice for all of our needs. How to make a two-piece dry suit watertight round the waist. We've noticed, because a two-piece dry suit is so new to people and they've never come across one before, that some people are struggling on how to wear them properly and how to make the waistline fully waterproof. So we're going to do a little bit of an instruction manual, as we've had a few people, especially when I've seen them out in the water, and I've gone and done this for them. They've gone, oh well, there's no instructions online, and actually we agree. I've had a quick look, and even though these kayaking brands have entered into paddleboarding and making this fantastic kit, I can see their point, and I can see why they haven't given any instructions to it. It's just it's missed the thought process, because kayakers know how to do it. So here you are, here's some instructions on how to get this kit working for you perfectly, so if you do accidentally fall in, it will be dry for you. Number one, Firstly, put on any underlayers, whether they are quick dry or thermal, then put on your socks. It's essential that you put your socks on first, as the seal at the bottom of the trousers will prevent you from putting them on afterwards. Number 2, put the trousers on before the jacket cag. Doing it this way around simplifies things. Pull the inner layer of the twin waist right up and turn down the outside layer. Number 3, put the cag on and place the inner twin waist between the inner and outer layers of the twin waist on the trousers. Number 4, turn the outer layer back on the trousers, ensuring the jacket is properly tucked in all around. Ask a friend to check if you're not sure. Number 5, tighten the Velcro fastening on the trousers. Number 6, pull down and tighten the closure on the jacket. Number 7, bend down in a squat position and place your fingers inside the ankle seal. This will release the air inside the trousers. Number 8, check that your neck is closed and comfortable and you're ready to get out in the water. A full dry suit. With the introduction of the two-piece dry suits becoming so comfortable, easy to wear, watertight and budget friendly, I must admit, a full one-piece dry suit is starting to be less necessary. That said, there is definitely some occasions where a full one-piece dry suit is right for some people, and those people will be people who are expecting to be in the water a lot, whether it's summer, winter, rain or shine, will be wanting to do step back turns, really playing around, being in and out the water all the time. If they're an instructor and doing water training, this is a potential other reason, but for everybody else, a two-piece dry suit is great. What to wear on your feet when paddleboarding? We get asked this all the time. Most people, when they're paddleboarding, they really love to feel the board and have that flexibility, and in summer, that's great. Barefoot paddleboarding is fantastic. As soon as it starts to get colder, it becomes less comfortable, and if people are living in different areas where it's just not possible, they're paddleboarding on canals and water where there's rocks and things around, that's where you need to start looking at what to wear on your feet. So yep, go bare feet if you can. The other option is low profile trainers and barefoot shoes, barefoot running shoes, things like that, that's great, or neoprene boots as it starts getting colder. If you're wanting to wear something on your feet when it's getting warmer, but you don't like a neoprene boot, you want to keep your feet dry, it's really back to what we were talking about, the dry suits. Great pair of waterproof socks and trainers over the top, and that will keep your feet totally dry as you're portaging in. How to protect your hands or keep them warm whilst paddleboarding. When you're paddleboarding in summer, most people don't wear gloves. I would say if you're doing a really long paddle, like we've just done the Trent 100, you can wear cycling gloves, fingerless or open, and that will just protect the pads of your hands, but most of us, that won't be needed. As we're paddleboarding and it's getting colder, it's really nice to keep your hands warm. It tends to be actually the thing that gets kind of almost hit by the wind first, so the tops of your hands can get a bit cold. So there's two main options for gloves within paddleboarding. One is a waterproof glove, a bit like the waterproof socks. They have a membrane in them and that stops the water coming in, or neoprene gloves, and actually you've got mitts as well, palmless mitts. And there's positives for each option. So the waterproof gloves, they come from mountain biking brands, so they will keep your hands dry if it's raining, but if you fall in, because they're not tight around the wrists, water will go in, so they're not waterproof for falling in, but they're amazing, comfortable. And then when you're using neoprene gloves, the positive to those is if you fall in, yes, they're going to be wet, but the water is going to warm up in your hand, carry on keeping your hands warm even though they're wet. The negative of them a little bit is when you're paddleboarding and your hands aren't wet, they can get really, really warm and a bit sweaty. And then palmless mitts, they tend to be used by people who are doing quite a lot of training and cadence training or racing, and they want to have that real contact of the paddle on their hands, but still keeping the wind off the front of their fingers. So that's your three options for paddleboarding gloves. Keeping your head warm whilst paddleboarding in the winter, again, technology is just really coming in all departments, from mountain biking brands as well as sea dipping brands, as well as paddleboarding. And again, a couple of options with hats. You've got knitted hats with waterproof membrane. They're fantastic. They keep your head dry, and if it's raining, it stops the water getting through. I've noticed actually when you fall in and your hat's wet, because there's a membrane in it, it stops the wind seeping through, so you're not getting a wind chill from the hat even if it's got a bit wet in the rain. The other option is just a plain knitted hat, and there is neoprene hat options as well, but a bit like the neoprene gloves, they just get a bit hot and sweaty, so we tend to be keeping to the knitted hats with a waterproof membrane. Which buoyancy aid or PFD is right for you? We're going to spend a little bit of time on this subject because we've noticed that people are actually buying the wrong buoyancy aid for themselves, and this isn't necessarily their fault. We've noticed when you Google paddleboard buoyancy aid, there's lots and lots of choice of brands telling you it's good for paddleboarding, but actually when you get a little bit into the detail, they're not as perfect as they should be, and all in different price points. It's not that they're particularly cheap, and some of them are actually quite expensive and no good as well. So let's get into this a little bit. So we've also noticed that there's quite a few people that are not actually quite sure the difference between a buoyancy aid and a life jacket. So just to try and simplify this a little bit, a life jacket is designed to turn you on your back, and a buoyancy aid has equal buoyancy on your front and your back. So if you fall in, it will bring you out of the water quickly, but because it's got equal buoyancy, it will allow you to swim back to your board easily rather than you having to fight it and it turning you on your back. So we think that's quite important for everybody to know. So that's the difference between a buoyancy aid and a life jacket. What makes a buoyancy aid perfect for paddleboarding? So a buoyancy aid which is perfect for paddleboarding, it has some key attributes. The foam on the front will be thin, and the reason why it has to be designed and thin and curved to your body shape as much as possible is it has to allow you to pull yourself back onto the board. And if that buoyancy aid is thicker, it does make it more difficult for riders, so thin foam is a real key. The other thing that makes the detail of a buoyancy aid perfect for paddleboarding is not a lot going on in the front. So zips are minimal and designed that they're not going to kind of get in the way when you're getting on the board. If there's a front zip, it will be designed to just cut into the foam, so again it's not going to catch on the board, and there will be no clips on the front. As soon as you have clips on the front of the buoyancy aid, when you're trying to get on, they catch and they stop you getting back on. So really nice, easy buoyancy aid, low foam, no clips, and you'll have a buoyancy aid great for paddleboarding. We've noticed that, again, because paddleboarding has become so popular, you've got lots of different designs coming in. So you have buoyancy aids that are shorter, and they're designed for shorter riders. And you've also got buoyancy aids taller riders designed as well. That longer foam just sits on a taller rider quite nicely, but equally if a shorter rider accidentally bought it, when they're trying to kneel down, it catches their knees and lifts it up into the neck. So it's quite important to just check your height and see which buoyancy aid is right for you. When you have a curvier paddleboarder, we tend to find that they prefer a front zip rather than overhead buoyancy aid. This is just so they can get their arms through it more easily. They can get the zip, pull it up the front, and it just fits them to a better level than a buoyancy aid that they're having to get over their head. For paddleboarders who are seeking a safety device without wearing full buoyancy aid, there is a solution to this. It's a waist PFD. You clip it around your waist, it looks like a small bum bag. If you were ever in a situation where you needed it, you pull a little toggle, gas is released, and you have a safety device that you can then put on. It's very, very handy for people who, it's nice summer's hot day where you're paddleboarding, you want to keep a tan, and it's also quite handy for people that are very, very curvy, and a buoyancy aid, it just stops them getting back on the board. What to take on your board? What to take on your paddleboard will differ greatly between the different seasons. If you're next to the beach and it's a nice hot summer day, a quick dry top for sun protection and some water will probably do you just fine. As you're paddling further away from civilization and as it's getting colder, you'll really need to put a little bit more thought into what to take with you on your paddleboard. everything from cold and warm drinks, snacks, jacket, right through to a change of clothes and any safety devices that you might need, right through to if you're expecting to paddle half-day paddle or full-day paddle and you're, yes, maybe in a group of friends rather than your own really. You'll want to take a nut and bolt for a fin, a spare fin. We really suggest a spare paddle between a group of friends as well, and any equipment that you may need to keep you safe on the water. We hope you've enjoyed watching our what to wear paddleboarding guide. If you ever need anything, you know where to come. Just give us a call, text, WhatsApp, email, Facebook messages, and we'll get back to you and help you as much as we can.